Welcome everyone, and thank you for participating in this collective reading as a community of poets. Over the course of late last fall and early December, which is still technically the fall, which I found out for the first time this year, I did not know that. And in March and April through the Poetry Soapbox series, which some of you participated in through our poetry conversations. Again, some of you participated in those, and in our workshops. A lot of you participated in those. We've mapped individual lives by reading other poets, by listening to each other's poems that they shared during workshops or during the other programs that we've had. And so in that sense, we've become cartographers, map making. And so this project, the overall project, is called Cartography of a Community. So I love that we've had different entry points onto the map of this project. And you all entered from a place that you felt comfortable, and I'm very appreciative of that. And this idea of cartography, a few of us, Lynn and Nikki and I, we've worked on projects together that are about mapping. And so I think it resonates with me, it resonates with them, and resonates with us. And so I'm so grateful that you all participated in some aspect of this community project. And I just wanted to share that I love poetry, and one of the reasons that I love it is because there are no boundaries. We were just talking about maps, and now we're talking about no boundaries. And I feel like that's the perfect poem. There's this complexity in poem that you can have no boundaries, but yet we can map our poems. So that's just to kind of give you a large picture of the whole project. Before we start and you begin to read your poems, I wanted to give you a visual image. And some of you who maybe work with younger folks I know some of you do work with younger folks, and you may have done this project, but you get a spool or a thing of yarn, and one person starts, and you share part of your story, and then either you pass it to someone or that person takes it, however that is. And then by the end, you have this circle and you have this yarn crisscrossing over, and where it just demonstrates the connectivity. And I feel like as we share our poems tonight or listen to poems, we're going to connect in ways that we didn't know that we shared connections. And so I just wanted to kind of set that up, because we're not in a physical space. And I feel like maybe if we were in this physical space, I would love to do that with all of you. And the color of the yarn for tonight would be blue. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah. Okay, so I had asked for poems to be sent to me. Some of you sent them, some of you didn't, and that's absolutely fine, because I meet you where you're at. The only reason I wanted to see them was to kind of curate it somehow. But since we didn't do that, it's going to be curated in the best way I know possible, and that is alphabetically. So we're going to start with Rochelle, but she's not here. So we'll start with Gerda, and then we'll go Gerda, I'm sorry, and Anne, Pasquale, and Teresa joined us. And so before you start your poem, if you could introduce yourself, your name, your pronouns, if you want to share those, and definitely share with us the title of your poem. So without further ado, Gerda, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Gerda Govini Tuarte, a published poet, and I've been writing for about 10 years. And I write because I'm addicted to words. I write because words allow me to breathe and have the space and room to grow and thrive. Early morning in Hamul. Roosters crow, wake-up call, turkeys gobble, choir of dogs bark, rabbits run for their lives, squirrels scurry. Rain quenched thirst of earth, trees, plants, flowers, colors pop. An oasis, shades of green. Hail shines on cement veranda. Horses neigh. Bobcats, coyotes mark their territory. Red-tailed hawks perform glide show. Sun blinks through gray clouds. Mountains watch, listen. We walk, talk, let go, laugh. Dog Chicha runs like lightning, burrows into bushes, hops, jumps, tries to catch butterflies. Tall grass wears raindrops. Ocean breeze comforts. Survival tap dances.
Good evening. I'm Ann Hoiberg. I'm a retired research psychologist. I worked 25 years for the federal government. I did a lot of research on women in the military. And from that endeavor, I decided to take an early retirement and pursue my interest in women's rights. And I immediately started with the National Women's Political Caucus because I was determined to get more women elected to office. And I'm still working on that. But tonight I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to recite a poem that I wrote. It's titled, Coming Together as Children. Where I'm from is the smallest town, really a village, on the Fox River in Illinois. Maybe not all that small. It housed 2 factories where all the fathers worked. My town boasted an Oddfellows Hall, Shirtless Lumberyard, Miller's Grocery, and Tommy's Tavern, where all the fathers shared a beer after work on payday. As children, our universe revolved around Carpenter Park, where I learned to steer a sled with mittened hands after a gentle belly flop or a push off the hilltop. My friends and I mastered ice skating backwards on a fireman-flooded ice skating rink. And in the spring, playing shortstop, I was the best of all 10-year-olds, occupied by park play. We climbed trees, jumped across the creek, built dams, and kicked the can. At age 15, I learned to shift gears in my family car as my dad directed me around the park. We came together as children, even holding hands as we walked from school to the library, where Miss Rose checked out our books with a pencil and an attached dated due stamp. At lunchtime, we walked in packs or rode our bicycles home for lunch with our mothers. 50 years later, young couples live in converted factory lofts. Administrators occupy offices in the school and library. And Tommy is long gone, along with Mr. Miller and Miss Rose. It's all gone. My village absorbed into a larger town, a small city with big box stores and organized children's sports. It's all gone, the coming together as children.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Lynn and Nikki, for the invitation. Glad to be a part of this. I will be reading 2 pieces. One that I read during the soapbox. I'll close with that one. And the other one, the first one, Moving South, I think ties into your concept of cartography. So the first one, Moving South. It all looks like landscape from here toward what once was continuity of sight. What this is what that is, and what it was is no longer. It all looks like landscape unobstructed by borders, where a white line divides lanes of approach and departure as it extends beyond sight, beyond belief. It all moves like landscape, unfettered, undulation well-defined, rise and fall beneath our feet. It whispers a tale of travel and visitation. It all moves like landscape with unquestioned direction, coordinates recall, returns and attempts at residence where residence cannot be had. This place is landscape and moves like being. And the other one is, the second poem is Migration, which is one that I read at the soapbox meeting. Travel is long across seas and rivers, over mountains and trails. We encounter and exchange stories, discover ourselves and each other's lives. This is the confluence of history, where migration brings us to thresholds where we can only simply be what we are. The ethnicities that flow through our veins, veiled by green screen realities, carded legitimacy of residence, retractable, revocable, rescindable, with an illegal erasure of equanimity. Identity is what we mirror of others, not a reflection, just a matter of an open gift of meeting. Thank you.
All right, so this one is titled, so this is by myself, and it is titled Reasons That I've Smoked. When I was a teenager, it was something, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna start again. Reasons that I've smoked. When I was a teenager, it was somewhat the thing to do, sort of. It was the process of meeting new people outside of my comfort circle or bubble, or people outside of the what I was supposed to do circle that helped me open my perspective. As a dancer, I thought about the try to stay small and light and tortured life because, well, that's an artist. I've been there. As I got older, it was more self-deprecating. Maybe it was all along. It was realizing I didn't have an answer, realizing that at times I didn't matter, realizing that there were questions I could never answer. It connected me to others that might do the same, others that feel unsatisfied with where they are, or where they could go, or what they could accomplish. It was seeing my brother's life fall apart. It was seeing my father become someone I didn't know or understand. It was seeing my mother become real to me. I mean, seeing her as a real person with real ideas shattered. It was seeing my partner completely unsatisfied. It was seeing my life unravel when from the outside, I don't think anyone saw it because I've learned coping mechanisms to cover it. It isn't an everyday occurrence, and I know it's not good for me, but neither is feeling helpless and hopeless and enraged that people don't take time to understand, and that I don't take time to understand, and that maybe we will never understand. And maybe that's the point. Maybe each inhale is just frivolous and stupid and toxic and doesn't bring me closer to anything. Maybe that is it. There isn't anything worthwhile, or anything can be worthwhile, or there is something between the two that can't be evaluated because it has more context than anyone could comprehend. I don't judge when I miss the metal jar that I was supposed to dispose the discarded end in. Thank you.
Okay, so this is also from the social engagement part. And it was, so I had written one thing immediately during the workshop, but I've totally rewritten it now because it wasn't anything then. And now I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's, I don't know if it's a poem. I think maybe it could be a prose poem, but anyway, the title is Ramparts. In our airy second story art studio, formerly the Puerto Rican dance hall in Pico Union, were the tall windows typical of 1910. On a quiet day when the smog had cleared and you could see the Hollywood sign, suddenly a bedlam of motorcycles roaring startled me to that window. Below, a shock of many LAPD motorcycles swarmed round a small car, pulled in for a stop. Why so many officers? What crisis was this? My heart dropped in dread as an older Black woman climbed out of the car. The male motorcycle mob surrounding her for minutes while I tried imagining what felony she had committed to cause this display. But then, like fairies in a clearing, it all disappeared. Into thin air, the motorcycle men wheeled like swallows and sped away, and the woman slowly drove away. No ticket, no arrest. I wanted to believe it was somehow fair, that there was some innocent explanation for why they had stopped her. But feared I had just seen upside down justice from my high Rapunzel window. Well, it was the Ramparts division. It was later they battered Rodney King, and we learned their name. As a child in LA, I knew the South was bad, scared to meet my Southern third and fourth cousins, because on the radio, I heard all about the lunch counters, fire hoses, dogs, and batons. I wanted desperately to join the Freedom Riders and stand up for what's right, but I was too small. My mother and I went to demonstrations about the bomb, but never about civil rights in LA. My mother died, then Martin Luther King too. Things seemed to be crumbling into so many pieces that couldn't talk, only scream. And my foster father tossed his horrid little epithets out as if they were witticisms. That he had been so clever, that he had been clever enough to invent, and my foster sisters bullied the littlest one, while I, the brave would-be freedom rider, stayed mute. The country was combusting. I was sympathetic and conflicted, still loyal to nonviolence, my mother, Martin, and Gandhi, as Los Angeles was burning. The end.
I'm Emmanuel Shama. I go by Emma. I'm a visual artist based in Atlanta, and I have also never really written poetry before. I participated in the cartography workshop. Specifically, this poem comes from the civic engagement class or workshop, and the title right now is poem number 2 because it's my second poem ever. And it's very short. And it was one of the exercises where we had to take a sentence from June Jordan's poem and then build off of that. So I'll just let you know what that sentence was and then start my poem after that. So yeah, here it goes. Okay. I didn't know and nobody told me, and what could I do or say anyway? 25 and much too old to just learn of the Japanese concentration camps. I was mad at my education, fat and oily pages of public school textbooks, years of hot fries dust, and dried sticky Gatorade. 31 and much too old to just learn of the school to prison pipeline. I was mad at my observation skills. The Black boys at school with hot tears spilling from their eyes were punished like men. 6 months ago, and much too old to just learn about sundown towns from a TV show. Now I'm just mad, and blaming myself for not knowing is only part of the scam. So that's it. And it's actually, still have some work to do on it. So it's kind of a draft. Thanks.
I'm Dylan Yates, she, her. This poem I'm reading is the first in a book of poetry that I'm writing for my son, Jamie, who left us physically from the earth about 3 years ago. Natal. Your name day, our first battleground. Me fighting you on my birthday to keep you sheltered long enough to gift you your own. Telling you, not yet. We will separate. You will have your day. You thrum time against my gargling uterus with your insistent heels. 2 days your poking fingers teased until steak dinner at that bleak sports bar, your father and I, interrupted by a stab, invisible tiny iron mace stab into lumbar region of spine, gathering breath. Passenger arrival manifest now made public. Time to release you from your water crib. Wanting our privacy, you and I, veiled through this labor, this production of mystical you being, stalled the hospital and slithered home to gather birth supplies through the mace burning, remembered. 3 months earlier, I had a natal dream. You and I, battling birth, just us, until a nurse came through her doorway to ask your name. I shared the one you told me. You, insistent now, beating out rhythms every 3, but at midnight at hospital, nurse and doctor told me, go home, no dilation, prescribing Seconal, 2 weeks early, those pains are Braxton Hicks. I, retreating from that battle, took 2 pills, sleepy, but not sleeping, through that mace. Now grown, anvil hot, my spine branded, virago, mind straining to sail away from into a nameless country with ceasefire. No baby for 2 weeks, doctor ordered. 4 a.m., rocking into contractions, sweaty nightgown between my teeth to keep my groaning silent as your father slept. You struggled lower. Waking father, who is scared cranky now, called curt doctor who said, I should let them all sleep. Exhausted, righteous, not meek now, shouted at the phone, if doctor won't deliver, I'd do it by myself at home. I had become the definition of helpless, and I had become a shipwright. Course uncharted in that moment, steering into an ocean, a battleground of roiling waves filled with flaming weapons, dealt on the next contraction strike, broke waters. Remorseful doctor heard transition sounds. Those groans groan agrestal. Now they translate. Doctor instructed father to usher me quickly. Your father on his crutches, not going anywhere with haste. I crawled to the car myself. At hospital, a wheelchair sweeps me to the birth floor. Same nurse. Tells me I'm not ready for delivery, 2 weeks early. I, responding with the calm of chaos certainty, no, now. We are outnumbered, embattled. After checking, nurse, wounded with apology, at 8 centimeters, there was no epidural option. I felt free and warrior-like, fighting for you. Winning the 23-year-old me chanted. Winning. 45 minutes later, you, silent and staring. The physical manifestation of someone who had always been here with me now on my ribs. You lifted head and told me, I am. And you were always the present.
Okay, this is a poem. My name is Catherine, and my pronouns are she, her. And this is a poem I actually wrote today. I've been working on a bunch of different ones, and I decided I needed a clean slate. So the title of this is The Big Dig or The Banshee, to be determined, one of those titles. An image awoke me from a dream state. The thin veil to the other side had been lifted. It was an arm outstretched from a pile of dirt, hands open, inviting. Shall I grab it? Will I go under? Is this death? Is this life? What is this invitation? The dirt speaks louder than the hand standing resolute. The dirt is dark and gritty like deoxygenated blood that gets expelled from the interior stomach lead. Dirt is a vital ingredient of my DNA. The Great Famine left its wounds on many generations. The dirt is in the form of a burial mound. I recognize it as spirit, my spirit. From the other side? Or is it from this side? Am I buried under the remains of my ancestors? Many who perished as did the potatoes years ago. Many who have recently departed, each one in too quick a succession, a whole generation nearly extinct, and another generation beginning to return. Am I too turning into dirt from which I come? Is it my bloodline calling to me? Could it be that they are asking for a pen to write with the dirt that is my kin, tell their stories, our stories? As I dig through the topsoil, birth certificates, marriage licenses, death certificates, always an occupation is listed as some form of laborer involving their bodies all in. But their occupations are not the full measure of themselves or me. Is this my true calling, vocation, to labor, to dig my family, myself out from under, or to go under with the poet's tool, to render full some of the stories from shards I have been archiving and collecting for decades? Stories outside of eulogies, stories rooted in life. Have I silenced myself, awaiting eternal permission, external permission, and eternal permission that I needed to begin? This hand outstretched is a lifeline, a reminder that I come from a long, long lineage of storytellers, Shenaka, some who still live with us. I will steady my heart for what I may unearth. I am not alone. There is a chorus with me, a chorus who lives in the dirt. Thank you.
Go. All right. I'm going to read a different poem than what I read on the soapbox. It's a little bit longer, but we haven't been really going very long, so everyone, I'm gonna just read this poem because it has art and everything else in it. All kinds of stuff in it. Anyway, I had to do research to write this poem, like actual honest to God research. Here we go. It's called 1,000 Years. 1968. What a year. With so much to remember, some things are bound to slip through the cracks of memory, be left off the pages of history books. MLK and RFK, bang, bang, shot dead, killed, assassinated. North Korea seizes the Pueblo. North Vietnam launches an offensive in celebration of the Lunar New Year. Boeing's 747 launches the term jumbo jet. Tommy Smith and John Carlos raise their fists and make the Olympics must-see TV, dragging America's racial injustices before the world. Kirk kisses Uhura, and TV again goes where no nation has gone before, but now has, as Apollo 8 circles the moon. But this is not a poem about the politics of 1968 or the people that died in 1968. It's about a birth. Christy is her name, a little placation for a torn nation and money for the bank account. Because if anything will traverse racism, it's capitalism. So a Black Barbie was released in 1968. Not really a Barbie, because Christy gets her own face mold and color. Christy was made to be Barbie's Black friend. Every cool white girl has at least one Black friend. At this point in time, it's required to have at least one Black friend to not be a racist. So in 1968, Christy. But this is not a poem about Christy. This is a poem about Brad. If you have Barbie, Ken, and Christy, what the fuck happens with that combo? Interracial threesomes? So in 1970, Brad was born. Brad gets his own face mold and gets Christy's color. You can only do so much to spur imagination, and Brad never sold well. Black men have never been embraced by this nation, and Brad was no different. Consequently, when a session of make-believe on Sandbox Dunes ended in a thunderstorm-driven hasty retreat, a Brad was lost. Years passed, and the park was rezoned, and a backhoe unearthed Brad. But this is not a Toy Story poem or reunion. In fact, when Brad was wrested from the pit, an arm was lost. The refuse was sifted from the soil, and Brad was rescued by an artist that prized the left-handed artifact for repurposing in a counterculture collage. The right arm, nestled amongst water bottles and shopping bags, was sent to be recycled. Bundled, wrapped, strapped, and placed on a barge, the arm was bound for its place of origin, China. A winter squall's waves tore at the lashings, and loosened bits and pieces were cast adrift at sea. So this is not even a poem about all of Brad. This is a poem about Brad's right arm, now resting in the South Pacific on the beach of Henderson Island, entangled in some fishing net, leaning against a shampoo bottle and shaded by the shadow of a Barbie lunchbox. Scoured by the salt water, pockmarked by the sand, and bleached by the sun, the Christy color is a faded memory. It could be Ken's arm, but it's Brad's arm. Exiled and accompanied by the sounds of surf and seagulls, where it will spend the next 1,000 years wasting away.
Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Bhavna. I'm a visual artist, and I too have not written a lot of poems, although I just love reading poems. And what I thought I would read today is something called as Brief Notes. This is kind of like a prose poem, and very, very short notes written to the universe, basically. Just whoever wants to take them, they can take them. And I have maybe 8, but I'll read maybe 4 of them. And Let's see. I have to, I haven't printed them out. They're on my computer. So I'm gonna have to read from there. This is note number 2. I'm writing to you from the bottom of a hole. Tomorrow I might write from the top of a mountain. There is a blanket in the hole and wind on the mountain. Wrapped in them, I look for words under the rocks and in the stars. This is note number 4. Call me to the forest. I may not be able to come, but call me nevertheless. Look at the mushroom and the moss. Feel the sweet mist of a cold spring on your skin and wait for me. Be warned. I'll probably want to tell you about a fire. Number 6. Listen, I saw this today. A man with a gun, a child with a mask, a finch at a fountain, a sign on a door, a wheel going backwards. We are being undone, you and me. You tried to tell me how humans would not endure. Number 7. I want you to know that I have been irrevocably changed by love, by the expanse of it and by the grief of it. Sometimes you get to watch a feeling billow out to the edges of your being and give shape to your ordinary life. Number 8. I'm allowing my pain to get to you. I can feel the scatter of it as it bounces to you. Don't claim it. To question everything does not mean a lack of understanding. There are 1,000 stories in the silence between us.
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to share any responses, physical, emotional, that you had to listening to others read their poems? And you could unmute yourself and share.
I just want to say thank you for putting this together, Catherine. This was really wonderful, and it was amazing to hear all these different voices and the storytelling and the poetry.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for including me. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. So just so we just want to be absolutely clear, this is a collaborative effort of myself and Art Produce. So the two in my screen, Nikki and Lynn are a key part of of making this happen. So yeah. Does anyone else want to share? Yes, Lynn.
Well, I want to say none of this happens without participation. So thank you all for being Art Produce in this collaboration. It's thrilling to me. I love hearing all the different work, and then coming from, you know, all different approaches. It's so fabulous. We're so happy that we've had you all participating, because that's how this works, right? And maybe someday very soon, even this summer, we might be able to share some poetry in person in the garden if you happen to be in San Diego. So we'll keep you posted on that. Maybe do a couple of open mics this summer if folks are interested.
That's awesome. So oh, thank you. And yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing, is that it's a community that we're doing this all together. And I just wanted I just wanted to share, when I was listening to all of your poems, those interconnections were so clear. There's so many crossovers, and I felt like it all together was a big dig for all of us. So does anyone else want to share? Or No? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Teresa. You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I
Great.
was glad to hear your poem again because I've already heard it once. So I was able to take it in better. For everyone else, I have to look at the recording, I think. And also, Ted, I really wanted to see what was going to happen with the doll. And then my computer cut out. So I have to, I know what happened in the end, but I don't know what happened in between. But I love that you ended it, you know, talking about the trash in the ocean. I thought that was so awesome the way you took that arc, and I want to see what happened in the middle. And then with your poem, Catherine, I don't know, it just really, I really felt like a deepening, like it's just so profound. And I don't know, these kind of things that revolve around memory. And yeah, they're just they could be, I don't know what to say, they just have a lot of compost in them. They have a lot of richness, and they have a lot of interconnections. They're sort of like, dendritic, and your brain has those like, those wires that connect everything. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I better just stop.
No, thank you, Teresa. Thank you. You touched on what is the beautiful thing about poetry. So if I know you attended the workshops, but one of the things that we did whenever we could was we reread the poems, right? Someone would read it and someone would read it a second time, because that is how poetry works. That first, it's like this wash, and then it just sets in deeper. So you just identified a key part of poetry reading. So even if you're writing your own poetry, I encourage you to stop after you're done and read it aloud more than once, so you can hear it in a different way than as if you read it silently. Poetry is meant to be spoken, for sure. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, all right. So in closing, I want to give a huge thank you to each of you for being present to share part of yourself in this larger community. And a huge thank you again to Nikki and Lynn from Art Produce. And there are a few folks who have worked on this project, Nasim Nabab and Sophia Gonzalez. Nasim worked on the Poetry Soapbox series. She'll be working on editing this part. And then Sophia Gonzalez worked on all of the social media and letting everybody know about the project. So just wanted to call out those people who are behind the scenes, but integral to this whole project. And of course, a thank you to the writers, Julia Alvarez and Gail Brandeis, who were a key part of our programming, for participating in those conversations. And also a huge thank you to the California Arts Council for their Artists and Communities grants. Hope they bring it back. Because they funded a majority of the project, as did some donors to Art Produce. So we're grateful for everyone. And indeed, it just demonstrates that it takes a community to create and shape a project like this that involves the community. So as we leave tonight, I would love for you to share a word or a phrase with the group that as most accurately as possible, because the poet is like that specific word or phrase that describes how you feel in this moment as we depart. Word or phrase about how you're feeling after our experience together tonight as a community of poets. Don't be shy.
Well, okay, I'll start. What the heck? I always feel enriched, and that's the word for me, because I'm getting a lot of knowledge about things from people from a point of view that I could never take. I mean, like, I would never know what it was like to birth a child, and yeah, so I know that I will never be going through that struggle. So there you go. But no, so yeah, enriched. That's the word.
Thanks.
I'll just say joy.
Joy. Awesome. Could be a word or a phrase. Mhm.
We have connected from Dylan and nourished from Bhavna
Okay.
in the chat.
Oh, is that in the chat? Okay. Okay, note about Catherine, she doesn't multitask. At least not any longer. Thank you for that. Awesome. Yeah, Teresa.
Okay, like a petal unfolding, just a kind of a opening, and there's still sort of an interior, it's accessing this interior part also.
Awesome.
I was going to
So-
jump on the TED train because I was trying to think of how a good word, and enriched is really that, like, I love that word actually. So I wanted to share in that particular word. I do feel enriched this evening by this and all of you. I'm so glad you guys are all here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna borrow Ted and Teresa's and Bhavna's, everybody's words, because there's a lot in my head, but yeah. I feel full and like future forward. I don't know what that word is.
That's awesome. I will share that I am feeling hopeful about the merging of poetry, history, storytelling. I mean, it's all one and the same in so many ways, and that just hopeful about the community, like like we all have the capacity to change things, and that's demonstrated by everything that everybody shared, and that gives me hope. Where I, sometimes it dwindles, but today I'll use that. I'm just feeling full of hope. So, is there anyone else who wanted to share? Lynn, did you want to share?
Yeah, well, again, I just feel so much gratitude for being able to be present and witness. I love poetry, and I get a lot of inspiration from my work, my visual work from poetry, but it's truly different to have someone read it, and for the person who wrote it in particular to read it to you. And it's so much, it's so powerful, and it's so intimate, and it's so direct. It just feels like sort of the most direct art form that there is. And I really appreciate that. It's one of the things I miss so much about being able to be in a space with others. And it's just, I have so much gratitude. I feel so taken care of, so just like nurtured and nourished, like you've been holding me this whole time. So thank you for sharing. It's very special.
Awesome. So is that everyone? We always want to give people an opportunity to express themselves. So yes, Teresa, you have something? Go ahead.
I just want to say I really appreciate that can you hear me?
Mhm.
That we we got to do a reading, because otherwise, like, we did the class and it was like I didn't really finish anything in the class, and then I just went back to visual art. It's like, yeah, I'll get back to that later, but then because then there was a deadline, then I spent the last couple days trying to finish a couple poems, and so that was great impetus to actually get into it on my own time. So thank you so much for doing this.
Sure.
And everyone's words are so moving. It's very wonderful.
Yeah. I think we all feel that way, that we've been moved. So thank you. And I'm sure that we'll see you around the Art Produce community and the communities beyond there, because we have all sorts of communities that are overlapping All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, have a great, safe weekend, long weekend. I know it's only Wednesday, but I won't see you until I see you.
If you guys do want to see us in person, we are here on Saturday from 6 to 9. So we're having open house, open studios. So come by. It's very safe and open and lots of spaces to be in outside and just kind of filter in when you feel safe doing so. But I'm so excited to have an in-person event on Saturday. Can't even we will be here. And if you guys want to come join us, please come see us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Night.